In June 2013, a contractor named Edward Snowden handed journalists a set of classified documents and disappeared. What followed was described as the greatest intelligence leak in American history. Programs were exposed, careers ended, Senate hearings were convened. The Director of National Intelligence was caught lying to Congress under oath. The President of the United States promised reform, and reform came. The NSA changed. It adapted. It presented new frameworks, new oversight mechanisms, new legal constraints to a public that demanded them. This is what that story looks like from the outside. From the inside, it looks different. To understand what the NSA rebuilt, it is first necessary to understand what was actually broken. The documents Snowden released revealed two architectures operating simultaneously. The first was PRISM, a collection program through which the NSA obtained communications data directly from 9 American technology companies: Microsoft, Google, Facebook, Apple, Yahoo, not metadata, content, email, video calls, file transfers. The program had operated quietly since 2007 and had never been reported publicly. The second was bulk telephone metadata collection, the systematic harvesting of every phone call made within the United States, not recordings, records, who called whom, when, for how long, from where. The program captured hundreds of millions of records each day and stored them for analysis. Alongside these two programs existed a third, XKeyscore, a system that allowed NSA analysts to search the content of emails and browsing histories across a global database in near real time, with minimal oversight and no court approval required at the point of search. These were not theoretical capabilities. They were operational. They were routine. And they had been justified under legal interpretations so expansive that the senators who wrote the relevant statute later said publicly that the executive branch had interpreted the law in ways Congress never intended. This is the architecture Snowden exposed. The political response followed a predictable sequence: denial, partial acknowledgement, promises of review, the formation of an independent oversight board, a presidential commission, a public address, a commitment to reform. In January 2014, President Obama announced changes to how the NSA would operate. Bulk collection of telephone metadata would continue, but under new conditions. The data would no longer be stored by the NSA itself. Analysts would need court approval before querying it, and the scope of queries would be limited. In June 2015, Congress passed the USA Freedom Act. It was presented and largely received as meaningful reform. The law ended bulk telephone metadata collection by the NSA. It required a new procedure. Instead of the NSA holding the records would remain with telecommunications providers. The NSA would need to request specific records from specific targets, with approval from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. This was real. It was also incomplete. PRISM was not dismantled. PRISM continued. The legal authority under which it operated, Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, was preserved, renewed, and later expanded. Upstream surveillance, through which the NSA intercepts Internet traffic directly from fiber optic cables rather than from technology companies, continued as well. What the USA Freedom Act ended was one specific program using one specific legal mechanism. The architecture it left intact was considerably larger. This is where the institutional adaptation becomes consequential. The end of bulk telephone metadata collection did not reduce the NSA's access to communications data. It restructured it. Under the new framework, telecommunications companies became the de facto repository of surveillance infrastructure. The records were no longer stored in Fort Meade. They were stored by Verizon and AT&T, with legal compulsion to produce them on request. The NSA traded a warehouse for a series of warehouses it did not have to maintain. Section 702, meanwhile, continued to grow. The program, as reauthorized in 2018 and again in 2024, permits the NSA to collect communications of non-U.S. persons located outside the United States, without a warrant, without individualized judicial approval, without notification to the target. The constraint is jurisdictional. But communications infrastructure is not jurisdictional. When a foreign target communicates with an American citizen, that American's communications are collected as well. This is called incidental collection. It is not incidental. In 2023, the NSA acknowledged that analysts had improperly accessed data on American citizens approximately 278,000 times in a single year under Section 702 authorities. This is not a peripheral concern. It is a structural feature of the architecture. The 2024 reauthorization of Section 702 included a provision that dramatically extended the definition of electronic communications service provider. Critics argued the new language was broad enough to compel virtually any business that handles internet traffic, hotels, data centers, commercial landlords with building Wi-Fi networks, to assist in NSA collection. The provision was passed as part of a foreign intelligence reauthorization bill. It received limited public attention. This is how reform functions in practice. The headline program ends. The underlying legal authority continues. The authority expands. The shift from bulk to targeted collection is real. It is also less constraining than it appears, because the capability environment has changed. In 2013, the value of bulk collection was in volume. The NSA could not predict which communications would be significant. The solution was to capture everything and analyze later. This logic held when analysis required human intervention. It does not hold in an environment where machine learning systems can process billions of records in seconds, identify patterns across petabytes of data, and flag anomalies without a human analyst reviewing individual entries. Targeted collection in this environment means something different than it once did. A targeted query against telecommunications metadata does not retrieve one record. It retrieves a network. Every number the target called, every number those numbers called, every communication that intersects with the target's pattern of activity. At scale, with automated analysis, targeted queries produce outputs that functionally approximate what bulk collection once delivered. The Church Committee, which investigated intelligence abuses in the 1970s, concluded that the primary safeguard against surveillance overreach was not legal. It was practical. The volume of data made comprehensive surveillance operationally difficult. That constraint no longer exists. The practical limit on surveillance is no longer the cost of collection. It is the cost of analysis, and analysis at scale is now automated. The NSA did not simply rebuild what Snowden exposed. It rebuilt in an environment where the underlying technology had fundamentally shifted. What required bulk collection in 2013 can now be achieved through targeted collection paired with machine learning infrastructure. The legal constraints that followed Snowden address a technical architecture that no longer exists. In early 2026, Congress is again debating the scope of FISA Section 702. Representative Ted Lieu stated publicly that he would not authorize mass surveillance authority for the current administration. Other members of Congress have raised concerns about how 702 data can be accessed by the executive branch without traditional warrant requirements. The debate follows a pattern that will be familiar by now. The program is defended as essential. The abuses are acknowledged as regrettable. Reforms are proposed. The core authority is preserved. What is different in 2026 is that the conversation is occurring in an environment where the administration seeking these authorities has publicly expressed interest in deploying them against political opponents, journalists, and activists. The question of legal authority has not changed. The question of who holds that authority and toward what ends has. The Snowden disclosures did not create this tension. They made it visible. And visible problems in institutional contexts do not always produce durable solutions. They produce cycles: exposure, reform, adaptation, re-expansion. This is the cycle the NSA has navigated for 60 years, from COINTELPRO to chaos, from the Church Committee to PRISM, from the USA Freedom Act to Section 702 reauthorization. The architecture changes. The logic does not. Snowden exposed a surveillance state operating beyond the knowledge of the public and, in meaningful respects, beyond the knowledge of the legislature. What followed was described as accountability. Some of it was. The bulk telephone metadata program ended. That is not nothing. But the legal framework that authorized PRISM expanded. The technical capability to replicate bulk collection through targeted means grew. The definition of who could be compelled to assist in collection broadened. And the question of who controls these authorities, under what political conditions, has never been more consequential. The NSA did not dismantle what Snowden exposed. It rebuilt it. Smaller in legal theory, larger in practical reach. And the public, which was promised transparency, received declassified summaries of programs that had already been redesigned. Silence does not mean absence. It means you stopped looking.